Hi everybody, Armored Pants here, and I have another video for you which I promised after we did the last one on bumping up your stats. And this is playing particularly for a mastery badge and how you can do that. Obviously it's not always going to be possible, but some tips for doing that. Now we discussed about bumping up stats, right? So it's a separate video on that, right? So, but now we're going to specifically look at going after a mastery badge. And it's going to differ by tank, right? So what you do in a particular tank is not always going to be the same. You're not going to do the same things all the time. So what you do in a light tank versus what you do in a TD, if you want to master those tanks, is quite different, right? So we need to be aware of that too. Now we discussed before, doing different strats for different stats when you want to bump your stats, like average damage or whatever. But going for a mastery, you actually have to behave somewhat differently again, right? So another easy strapline to remember is different aim, different game, right? So your aim here is to get a mastery badge, not necessarily to survive the game, not necessarily to do the most damage, right? And a standard play that you may do in a particular tank may not always be the best for getting a mastery badge. For example, you may put yourself unnecessarily in danger because your active actions are going to contribute to the XP that's going to get you that mastery badge, right? And you do things you may not normally do to make it easier for you to get that mastery badge. And we're going to discuss why, and we're going to use gameplay to illustrate exactly what I'm trying to communicate here, so that hopefully it makes a bit more sense as we look at the gameplay unfold. Now I know what you're thinking. You're going to think, well, surely Armored, if I play well and I utilize all the things that you and other people and my own experience have taught me to do in a game, then naturally the mastery badge should come. And yes, you're right, it should, and if you have a really good game you'll get mastery badges. But when I'm shooting a video or trying to do a review of tank, I always try to get a mastery game in it. Why? Because I think getting a mastery game shows you the full extent of and the capabilities of that tank. So for example, like if you want to learn how to take a penalty, maybe looking at Ronaldo, who was one of the best exponents of penalty taking in the world, is a good thing to do rather than look at somebody who misses regularly, like Gareth Southgate. So I thought, so that's where I always try to get a mastery badge, right? But when I'm trying to get a mastery badge, I play differently than normally, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, I do things, let's take for example the tank we're looking at right now, T25AT, right? So this is a TD, right? And normally in a TD, one of the best ways to play a TD is to sit at the back, let your allies spot up the reds, and then farm damage, right? And you can get some really nice damage, etc. But that's not always necessarily the best way to get a mastery badge. You can have very good games and do lots of damage, but you may not get that mastery badge. Why is that? Well, because the mastery badge is delivered on XP, it's not delivered on damage. Now, if you take the example of the waffle tractor, right? If you want to master the waffle tractor by playing it as it should be played, sitting at the back of the map, keeping yourself safe, farming damage, you're going to have to do minimum 5k, but probably 5.5 to 6k of damage to get the XP, or to get near to the XP to get that mastery badge. But if you move around the map and capture bases, maybe even spot up the enemy, do a lot more active actions, like for example here, I know you won't do that on a waffle tractor, but here in this tank, ramming for example, which gives you extra XP, right? Then you have a better chance of getting a mastery badge, and it means you have to do less damage, because it's not always possible to do huge amounts of damage, right? Because particularly if you're in a really good team, your teammates are also going to do a lot of damage, right? And again, getting that mastery badge is more difficult. But in a tank like this, if you want a mastery badge, and I'm going for a mastery badge in this game, I wanted to get a mastery badge, because I wanted to utilize mastery games to explain different things in going bumping up the stats and all those other things, right? And when I shot this mastery game, I thought it was a particularly good example of changing your gameplay if you particularly want to master a tank. And here we're looking at a TD, but the principle is the same, right? You'll notice something I often do here is when I'm going for a kill, I switch up to APCR on my Pramo just to make absolutely sure. reduce the risk of bounces, deflections, ghost shots or whatever like that, getting the extra muzzle velocity, getting the extra pen just to clear off that tank, even though it's not necessary, it's just a safety thing. And again, that contributes towards the mastery badge because I got an extra kill there, so I got extra damage, so basically that's all contributing towards my additional XP. But right, if you look in this game, right, I have captured, so first you have moved around the map, right, so I haven't sat at the back, which you might normally do in a TD like this. I've captured A, and now I've captured C, so that's big amount of XP I'm getting there, right? So it's helping me get that mastery badge, right? You know, I'm confident in the armor of this tank, so I get a lovely bounce there, more XP, right? Now, if I wasn't moving around the map, that 101p might never have taken a shot on me, and I wouldn't have gotten that bounce. There's less XP, right? Here I am, I'm chasing the T29. You don't normally chase heavy tanks in a TD. Of course you can, especially if you got some armor, but normally you don't, right? Especially if you're adapting standard TD tactics, which we spoke about, and how to play TDs, etc., in the guide to TDs, right? But you can see I'm all over the map here, right? I'm all over the map. I'm doing lots of active actions, capturing XP, you know, moving around. I maybe even doing some spotting. And here, right, here in a normal game, you know, if it wasn't going for the mastery badge, I would just stay hidden. We're going to win on points, and I would survive the battle. But because I'm going for the mastery, I'm going to risk getting killed. And you see I got killed here. To get that extra damage, try to get the kill in the higher tier tank as well. See if I can deliver a mastery badge. But I got an extra, whatever it was, 800 or 900 damage there going after the IS. And that has taken me up now to way over 4k of damage. I'm almost at 4.5k of damage. And those active actions, those things are enabling me to get the mastery badge. And that's what I'm saying. It's behaving differently, different aim, different game, right? You can see there I've almost done 3 times the damage of the next guy on my team, which I probably wouldn't have done if I'd played that game as you would normally play a TD, sit the back and farm damage. So because I wanted to master this tank, I wanted to get a mastery badge, you know, I behaved differently, right? I understood my tank, utilized my tank's advantages, moved around the map, was able to capture, also do damage, get some kills, you know, got high caliber top gun, and capturing the bases. All of those things, if you look at the breakdown of the XP, contributed towards me getting that mastery badge. So just let's have a quick recap, right? So, you know, playing a mastery game, if you want to play towards a mastery, you sometimes play differently and take a lot of risks that you may not normally take. Different aim, different game, right? Just remember that strapline. You would behave differently. You might lose more games than you might normally because you're taking more risks and because you're behaving differently. But if your eye is on the prize, if you want that mastery badge, there are things you have to do. So then you have to forget about your win rate, forget about other stats if you want to master that tank. So just bear that in mind, guys. You know, different aim, different game. I hope this makes sense. I hope you found it useful. And now I guess all remains for me is to say is cheers, Mush. And as always, pants off.